Hi, folks. Thanks for joining. My name's Gar Whaley. I'm one of the co-founders here of Teal. I'm joined today by my partner, our co-founder and CIO CTO, Reid Johnston. Reid, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about Copilot agents.
Copilot agents. So fantastic. We've done a few webinars on Copilot, how to use generally what is Copilot, how to use Copilot in different applications, and sort of we're on the next round of that, which is agents, which are really, really cool and helpful and help you be efficient. What is an agent? Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So normally when we're talking about Copilot, and I'll just share my screen so that we can actually start taking a look at this stuff. I'll hit share. There we go. See that?
I can see it.
All right. So what we're talking about here this is Copilot Biz Chat. This is your text interaction with Copilot within Microsoft 365. When we talk about an agent, we're really talking about Copilot having some specific instructions to respond in a specific way. So some background context, some knowledge, some explanation of how to operate versus BizChat, which is just a blank slate. You can ask it anything. It's going to respond from your files. It's going to respond from the web. An agent is a specialist, so to speak.
Right, and it helps you become more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think maybe the best way to talk about this would be to demonstrate one or maybe an iteration of one that you created a long time ago for us. And we've actually shared a video on that on our website, but um, an iteration, not only the one we shared before was on a handbook, an HR handbook, and today I think you wanted to show new employee agent, right?
Yeah. So, gosh, it was probably about a year ago, maybe longer, when Copilot Studio came out. It was a separate application that you could sign into and create an agent. And this was all pretty early within the Copilot stuff being released by Microsoft. But in recent months, they've really tried to turn everyone into agent builders. You don't have to be a software developer to be able to do this. So they've integrated Copilot Studio Lite, I'd say, into Teams. So I'm in Copilot, I hit the Copilot button, and right over to the right, you'll see there's a link to create an agent. And what this is going to do is this will take me into kind of a lightweight version of Copilot Studio. It'll let me not only create agents here, but I can edit my existing agents that I might have created before. So today we're going to create an agent. That's what we'll do.
So, like you said, lightweight agent studio, but this what we're going to show today, you don't need any special skills necessarily for. It's not the full Copilot agent studio.
Right. Yep. And with that, there's limitations. The limitations really are Copilot Studio that we're looking at here can really only browse the web and access your files. It can't perform actions. Actions would be sending emails and manipulating data in your environment, but that could be another video down the road. So I'll start here. I've hit create an agent, and I can actually use natural language to describe what I want my agent to do. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say, create an agent that will help a new employee by answering questions they might have after joining our company. So I can use natural language. I'm not programming. So Copilot here will respond. So let's proceed. So first off, it wants to give it a name. New employee guide. Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah, that's great. Now I can have typos in what I'm replying, and Copilot gets it. We call it Gar speak. Yeah, we call it Gar speak, but everybody has typos. So now it wants to know what are the rules really for this agent. So I've prepped for this, but when you're giving an agent instructions, you want to think about how you would talk to either a new employee or someone that you're asking to do something for you. Less is not more, right? You want to provide details. You want to provide examples of what good looks like. You want to kind of define what the guardrails are. So I've got some language here that I worked on, and I'll copy this, and I'm going to paste it into this box. So I've got your scope. You help new employees answer questions about the organization, answer based on our documents only. Always recommend going to the source document. If you can't find the answer, maybe suggest some alternative questions, because AI may not understand the type of questions that we're asking. And use a conversational, concise style. So that's the instructions. So I'm going to hit send. So now it wants to look at data sources. So this is optional. Do you have any public websites or data sources you'd add? I'm going to say no, because I don't want Copilot to use the public internet. I want Copilot to use our data to answer questions about our company. So now my agent is set up. So I've gone through kind of this easy to use startup process, but I haven't given Copilot the specific data that I want it to use to answer questions that might come up. So to do that, we go into this configure section. Now, when I go into the configure section, and I could have done this from step one, but you can see that the conversation that I just had with Copilot, it has plugged in that information into the instructions and into starter prompts. It kind of figured that out based on our conversation.
Right. So you could have gone into each one of these sections and filled it out yourself, but instead you asked Copilot to do it for you, essentially.
Basically, yeah. and I said to Copilot, I don't want you to use the public internet, but it did connect to the root of our SharePoint site. I don't want that either. So I'm going to
I'm
click
not
this.
familiar with that word. It looks like it says root.
Yeah, it's a root. Yeah, right. Root. So I'm going to hit remove. I'm going to remove that. But I'm going to browse.
Whether it's root or route, you don't want at the top level is your point.
Right. But I want to give Copilot some data. I want to give it some knowledge that I know is current and I know is up to date about the company, HR policies, insurance information, employee handbook, that kind of stuff, the stuff that new employees will have questions about. So here we have all of our different SharePoint sites. For this demo, I created a new SharePoint site and I curated some information from our environment. But in the real world, you might have an HR site, you might have a payroll site, you might have different sites that have information. But for this demo, I created a site. I pulled in HR information, disability information, submitting claims, new employee, I put our handbook in there, a bunch of stuff that I thought, hey, a new employee might have questions about. So I'm going to select this library here. And now Copilot is going to use this library to be its knowledge source. Now it says root again there, but let's see if it's going to the right spot. It is. It's going to the right spot. It's going to this.
So the agent is always going to call it root because that is the top level for this agent. You've just pointed it to in our SharePoint a lower level.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. So now I've got my data. Copilot gave me some starter prompts, and these are really just ideas for a person that's interacting with the agent to give them some ideas of questions they could ask. But if I'm a new employee, I'm going to be asking questions like, well, when is our next annual enrollment? What's our pay cycle like? Those kinds of things. So these starter prompts, I could remove all of them if I want. I could change them if I want, but it's a nice way to give the user some information about how to interact. So I've got my starter prompts, I've got my files. I'm going to click update here so that I'm saving all of the information. Give it a
Do you
second.
need a Copilot license to be able to do this?
You do need a Copilot license to be able to access your files. So there's a bunch of complexity around whether you need licenses or not. Microsoft has introduced some pay-as-you-go options. The bottom line is you have to turn on some features in your Microsoft tenant to do some of this stuff. So you'll need to talk to your IT company, and this is where we excel. We help our clients with this sort of thing.
Yeah, that was a little soft for you. But that said, once you release it, everyone that's going to access it and use this tool does not need a Copilot license, correct?
Correct. Yep, that's correct. Yep. So I've created my agent, and now
Lost your audio.
am I back?
Yes, you are.
Weird. It's blinking now. I wonder if
Yeah.
that means my battery's low.
Yeah, I would turn that off and go to your other one real quick, Reid.
Let's do that. Just a second here. Like this. How's
Now,
that?
if I was prepared as your partner in crime, I'd have a little joke to say right now.
Can you hear me now?
It's not that great.
It's not that great. Well, I could talk, loudly into the microphone.
I think you're not even on the right mic.
I'm on my webcam here.
I can barely hear you.
Hang on, sir. Let's see.
Live without a net. Live without a net.
Okay. How's that?
That's better.
Okay. We'll go with that. Is that okay?
Yep, that's definitely, it's not as good as your lapel mic, but it is good.
Okay. So I've saved my Copilot agent, and now I can share it with members of my organization. So I'm going to share this with you for now, but normally we could share it with everybody in the organization. So I'm going to hit continue. It's going to make sure that anyone I'm sharing this with has access to its source data, right? Copilot only lets users access the data that they have permission to see. So normally we would be using an HR site that has public information for our team, anything about our plans and so forth. So I'm going to hit save. So it's setting all of those permissions right now. And I can copy this link and I could send that to you in an email. I could message it to you in Teams, but we've got access to it right here in our agent builder. If I close out of this and I click on see more, I should have my new employee guide showing up somewhere here. I'm going to hit create agent and go back to my agents. There it is. I've got it listed there. So sometimes when we're working with this, the different screens aren't going to update instantly, but we can get there. So now I have my new employee guide, and now I can ask it some questions as if I were a new employee. So let's ask it a question. Let's say, what is our PTO policy? So what the agent is doing now is it's only looking at that data that I told it to look at. Here we go.
That is amazingly fast. I don't even remember you hitting update, but it was less than 3 minutes ago that you finished the agent and it can already answer the question. Well,
Yep.
let's see, is it the right answer?
Yeah.
It points to the right handbook.
Yep, points to the handbook. Let's see, outlined here, specific details. It's not really telling me exactly what the schedule is, but it's telling me the handbook has the answer. Now I could click on this document and it's going to open it up in my browser and give me access to that handbook. So there we go. This was the one that was revised a year ago. It's almost time for another revision. So another question that we could ask is like, who is our insurance provider? Might be a question that a new employee might ask. They want to know about health insurance or dental coverage. Here we go. Now, this is the right answer. I know this from memory. So here, Principal Life, that's one of the insurance providers that we work with, right? And there's a contact sheet and it's got some contact information there. But again, it's saying if you need further assistance, talk to HR. So this is an important point to make. The agent has access to the information, but it's not always able to surface the exactly right answer to the question. Sometimes if we rephrase a question, it may give us a different type of answer. So let's try to get more specific. We can say, who is our vision coverage for? That might be a typical question a new employee might ask.
That's definitely a question that I have.
Principal Financial Group, here we go. We'll let it scroll a little bit. So it's talking about copays.
Oh, yeah, those are good ones because those are like, what is my vision copay?
Uh-huh. Yep. Now it looks like it surfaced this information from the employee benefits guide. So that's a good document with some authority. Again, we're not going out to the internet here. We're not looking across our entire SharePoint site. We're only looking at the information that the agent is returning. So the agent is like the specialist. It's got a very narrow set of knowledge.
Agent is only looking at the route.
The root, yeah.
Root, yes,
Right.
it's the root.
How do I request time off? Get started in your job? When can I take some time off, right? Let's see what it says. To request time off, here we go. Okay. Takes a second. Teal employee handbook, supervisor or manager. There's an approval process. Ensure you have the documentation. Yeah, that's from our handbook.
This is fantastic. This is fantastic. So we can set this up for new employees. Was there anything we're at about 21 minutes? Anything else about this particular agent that you wanted to show?
If I go back to the top, or let's close this. Let's see if it's showing up in my, so it's still not showing up here in my Teams, but let's
Did
go.
you share it with me? Oh no,
I
you
did.
did. You just shared it, but you didn't send me a link or anything.
Right. Yep. So if I think it's important to share, how do I get back to that agent to edit it, right?
Yes.
So that's not very intuitive. You'd think there'd be an edit agent button. Even if here are some other agents I've created. And if I click on the three little dots, the only option is uninstall. So when you build an agent, you always want to go back to that create an agent. It's going to take you back into Copilot Studio like I'm creating a new agent. But if you go up to the top here, see, it's not intuitive. They're still working on some of this stuff. Click on My Agents. There's that new employee guide. So I can click on that and it's going to take me back in here. If the feedback I was getting from the agent wasn't in the tone or style that I wanted, I could modify some of these instructions here. I could add additional knowledge sources if I want to. And I could turn on some other capabilities like image editor. That's a different discussion for a different day. But
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
yeah, but you could change some of these starter prompts. Once you've made the changes, you click update. It's going to save those changes into the agent. The agent is just a file that sits in your SharePoint site. And then you can share it out using that share button.
Reid, question has come up. I don't know if you could show this, but you're showing now what your view is as the author, as the admin of this agent.
Mm-hmm.
What would it look like for an end user?
Sure. I'll open up a browser window here. And I'm going to copy this URL, right? And if I were to paste this into my browser, it's going to pop up. Give it a second here. New employee guide built by Reid version 1.0. This is all kind of the automatic stuff. When I click open, it's going to take me into my Copilot app. And as a team member that's using this agent, now it shows up in my list. So,
Ah,
so this is what it looks like if I were to share it with you and you were to click on that link. So
right. And you did share it with me. So if I had that
yeah.
link, but so every time now that you go back, you're a new employee, right?
Mhm.
You just started last week. I sent you this link. You went in and asked a question about health insurance. When you go back into Copilot in a week, will it
Mhm.
still be there for me to ask a question about PTO?
Yeah, it'll be over here to the right in my agent list because I opened it once. Now it adds it to my list. Now, in a future webinar, maybe we can talk about how to publish these agents directly into Teams because that's a little bit more intuitive. It can show up next to your other team members.
Which is what we did with the handbook when we
Yep.
first did it. And there's a video on that. So we're at about 25 minutes. We usually like to keep these at 20 minutes, but this is a longer one. So
Mhm.
we're gonna hit our 30-minute mark. But what are some other examples, or what are some other ideas of a simple agent that small and medium-sized businesses could use? I mean, this is a great one because everybody has new employees. Everybody has a lot of data all over the place for new employees. What are some other examples that you could come up with?
Yeah, some other examples. We all have vendors that we work with. We all keep track of vendor invoices, vendor contracts, and questions come up from time to time. When does that particular service expire? How much does that cost? So if you created an agent that was targeted at your vendor folder in SharePoint, now you've got an easy way to ask questions using natural language about those contracts, about those invoices, about those documents related to the vendor. That I think could be really useful. Many organizations also have standard operating procedures or SOPs. Those SOPs might be saved in SharePoint as well. So you could create an agent that only looks at those SOPs for helping new team members out or anybody out about how certain processes work. So yeah, those are a couple of use cases. Because the thing to think about here is these declarative agents from Copilot can really only look up information. They can't do anything. Um, to make an agent that performs an action, like sending an email or editing a file, we need to be in Copilot Studio, and that's a more complicated process. It's still not super complicated. It's kind of low code
Yeah, you
development.
don't have to be able to write code,
Right.
but you
Uh,
do need some practice. This is one that this. How do you describe this one? You called it light, I think.
yeah, it's Copilot Studio Lite, and this is something that anyone can
Anybody can
do
do.
in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Running out of time here. Is there anything else we should add on setting up a basic Copilot agent?
The main point that I should add is iterate. Start with something, go back in and edit your instructions, test it, edit your instructions, test it. It won't be exactly what you want on the first shot. It'll take a little bit of time, but with some iteration, you'll have a really useful tool that anybody in your organization can use.
Yeah, I noticed that, when you look at our other webinars that we've done on Copilot specifically, it's something that we've said on every one, iterate, even when you're doing last one I think we did was PowerPoint, right? Iterate on that. So
Yep.
great, Reid. We're right at time. We're a little bit under 30 minutes. I'd like to thank you for sharing today. Thank you, folks, for joining us. If you want any more information, feel free to reach out to Reid or I. Best way to get us is just info@tealtech.com. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thanks a lot.